Go ahead and do that. So we'll go ahead and get started. If people jump in, that's great. Hopefully more people do join the conversation and the Zoom. I'm Brent Germany for those who don't know me. Michael McCullough, and I should probably change my name on here, my profile name. So there you go, easy peasy. And so we actually do this every Thursday for agents, whoever wants to join. We do a lot of training and we call this Think Up Thursdays. So where this particular training came about, I'm part of the Dave Ramsey Mastermind, and I'm once a month we're on that, and we just happened to be talking about it last week about how we are seeing a very positive response to setting virtual appointments. And I know that Michael's going to get into that, but what I told them is, and Michael's been with me for 3 years. Yeah, I think it's on your end, Tony. I don't know if you may want to join from your phone there, um, but hopefully that will improve. It seems to be fine for us. Michael's only had his license for 3 years. He came from higher education. He knew my wife, and I after lots and lots of arm twisting, I got him to get his real estate license and join. And I can tell you that I've had a lot of different coaches and done a lot of coaching throughout my real estate career. And I've met a lot and my background is computer science. So online lead generation was always a huge part of the business. And team members really need that. It's that conversion piece where people get hung up. Michael is, without a doubt, I'd put him up against literally the best inside sales appointment setter type of people in the country. I really would put him up against all of them. He's amazing, and I know that's me kind of pumping him up a little bit. So let me bring him back down, because I will say that he's not doing anything special. He's just being relational and asking good questions. But what we have found, and I'll be turning this over to Michael, what we have found is that there's so many different ways to run your business, and we have these limiting beliefs that you have to do it a certain way. And when I first got my license, I've been licensed for I think 14 years now, 13 years. And it was, hey, you want to have a meeting, you want to do a buyer consult or listing consult, let's meet at your house or my office, or let's meet at a Starbucks, somewhere like that. And we see larger companies like Redfin where they're doing these virtual appointments. And we thought to ourselves, hey, why aren't we doing that? And with the innovation of technology that continues to progress, and AI and everything that's really happening, it has really just put this stuff into David, I'll give you one into warp speed there, buddy, for your Star Wars stuff. And with that too, you see Staples saying the easy button. We use that term now, like easy button, all the time, because that's part of our vocabulary, because that's what people really want. They want things to be easier. So what we have found is that uh hey, meet me at a Starbucks, oh gosh, this is getting serious. And so with the online and with the virtual appointment, it really brings people's defenses down. And Michael's going to talk about his percentages on how many people are showing up. Because what's one of the worst things that happens when you go set an appointment with someone you've never met and they don't show up, and you've driven an hour? For us, we're in Dallas Fort Worth. You can go an hour in traffic. They don't show up, and an hour back, and you sit there and wait for half an hour, and they no call, no show you. That's very frustrating. This eliminates a lot of that problem. Michael will also talk about how we're not only doing that, but we're leveraging showing partners to go open doors for us as well. And so some of that now that's going to lead into what we'll talk about next week as well, but he will touch on that, because what we're finding is, there's different people that have different goals and needs and wants in their life. For one agent on the team, I know that he would use the showing partner because he wants more time at home with his kids, and not have to lose out on sales. Michael, on the other hand, is one of the weirdos. He wants more time so he can just make more phone calls and set more appointments. And for me, it's like, My wife wants to move to Tennessee. Well, I can keep my business here in Dallas and live in Tennessee and do that. So we're able to leverage this stuff. And what we've been doing, this isn't conceptual. We have proof of concept. And one of the worst things you can do in any industry is give someone advice and they go out and start, at the worst case, start spending money on things. And they start doing that. And it's like, hey, oh no, you should do Zillow and all this, and you go spend, cool, I'll do $5,000 a month. And you turn out it was like horrible advice because that person's never even done it. We've been doing this. We've been adjusting it. Michael made a tweak to it this morning by running a virtual appointment and bringing the lender online for the first time this morning. And that had great success. So now what is he doing is he is bridging this gap of like, okay, what are the next steps? Now you need to talk to our lender. He went ahead and had him talk to him right there on the spot at first meeting, virtual meeting. So that works great. So I'm going to hand this over to Michael, let him get going. The Q&A, you guys are here. If you have any questions, if you want to do the hand raise thing or just come off mute, we want this to ask as many questions as possible. And again, for anyone that didn't show up, we'll send this out and we'll put it on, YouTube and all that stuff. So without a doubt, Michael McCullough, want to give it over to you, buddy. Go for it.
All right. And as Brent mentioned, and I'll echo, I want to make this conversational. I have a whole PowerPoint, and Jen is going to be emailing it out to you guys if you haven't already gotten it. I would say if you wanted to follow along, do it there. There's a lot that can be covered as it relates to lead conversion, whether it's your past clients, whether it's, variety of different sources, whatever it is, there are different ways of doing things. But we're only going to be able to kind of hit some of this at a surface level because, there's somebody that we work with that'll say all the time, like, Michael's one of the best scripters in the country. I'm not very scripted at all. Like, I would actually tell people not to be scripted. I'd just like to put a framework in place for people and just stick to that framework. But at the end of the day, it's 100% on the agent to do the, soft skills, that communicate very well, be diligent, problem solve, think through certain things. But so much of what we're doing is the psychology of sales more so than anything else. And so, there's so much that we could talk about. We could have an hour-long conversation here today just about how to effectively open and frame a conversation and the impact that it has on it. And we'll touch a little bit on that, but there are some things that we'll highlight and say, like, next Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit about the next step in the evolution of what we're doing. If anybody's interested in that. But, if anybody wants my number, to hit me up on Marco Polo or email address to get a little bit more in depth on any of these things, I'm happy to do it. But really the meat and potatoes of this conversation are how to get buy-in to those virtual appointments and the virtual appointments themselves. And with the NAR settlement changes that took place roughly tomorrow or a few days from now marks 3 months. So we're a quarter into this. And these virtual appointments, in my opinion, don't need to be something that is a tool in your tool belt that you can just rely on. It needs to be something that, in my opinion, needs to be the standard because of how effective it can be, particularly when it comes to getting representations done. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is very anecdotal. And I'm going to use some scenarios, and I don't ever want it to come off as me saying that, like, oh my God, I've seen so many bad examples. But I think that we're all blessed with the ability to see what someone else has done and emulate the good and bad parts of it. And unfortunately, because I do work in sales and training as well and development, I see a lot of interactions and I see a lot of bad examples of what not to do, and want to kind of shed some light on some of the do's and the don'ts to make sure that you're giving yourself the best opportunity to win in these circumstances. So we'll get into that. I'll pause just for a second. Does anybody have any specific questions or anything that they want to make sure that we do go over while we're on this call? All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the background and how we got here. Brent already talked a little bit about it, but I want to add some additional perspective. Again, I want to talk a little bit about the gaining buy-in to the appointment, the virtual appointment itself, the do's and the don'ts, and then we'll wrap. So before I do, I have 2 quotes from a gentleman named Ryan Foland. And I had no idea who this person was until yesterday, to be honest with you. I was putting together the presentation and There's a quote that I heard last week that's really just kind of stuck with me. And that quote is, the more you talk, the less people listen. And as I read that, I understand like when you're training, like I'm talking a lot and I hate hearing myself talk. So it's kind of ironic, but I think that a lot of sales agents think that the way to be an effective sales agent is to talk somebody to death. And that is the absolute wrong way to do it. I've been in a lot of appointments where people just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. But if we were able to change that to where we just ask a lot more questions, we can be effective as communicators and have really good conversations without ever doing anything other than asking questions. I hate to refer to it because it's crude humor, but that movie 40-Year-Old Virgin, there's a lot of validity to what they tell him when they go on a speed dating. It's just asking questions. You can have a very good conversation without ever once doing anything other than asking questions. And so there's got to be an 80-20 rule there in place. But that quote sticks out. The more you talk, the less people listen. The second quote, as it relates to the actual virtual consultation, is that nobody cares about what you do. They care about the problem you solve. I want to read that again. Nobody cares about what you do. They care about the problem you solve. At the end of the day, what we're doing is getting people from point A to point B. That's it. Nothing else. We're going to talk a lot about keeping it very simple and pivoting, but we're not curing cancer. We're helping people do the things that they want to do as it relates to getting into a home. And most people are going to have some barriers in the way that are either perceived or actual. And it's just our job to get them through those things. Now, again, those quotes came from a gentleman named Ryan Foland. I looked up that first quote. I was like, who actually said it? And it was something that he talked about. And if you go to YouTube and look him up, he's got a lot of TED Talks about being very conversational. And I started getting into them yesterday. They were really good. One of the other things I'm going to reference is a book called Never Split the Difference. If you haven't read it before, there's one compelling question in there that I've been using a lot that's working to great success as well. And we'll get to that. But let's just kind of touch a little bit on the background and how we got here. As Brent mentioned, my background is in higher education. I've worked in sales for a very long time. I've done it forever. It's very easy to me. It's not very difficult. Sometimes I have to remind myself that maybe I take for granted just how easy it's become because I've gone through the repetition. But I would tell anybody that the best repetition that you're going to get if you're not actively role playing or working with a lot of clients is in your personal life. You've got to be leveraging this and trying to practice this in your personal life as best as possible. But I worked in higher education sales, and all the way back in 2008, one of the biggest objections that we had in higher education, if you worked for a provider that was offering an online modality, was, is this degree going to be legitimate because I'm doing it online? And over the years, things have transitioned to where now a lot of people do online learning. And there was this thing that happened a few years ago. You may have heard of it, COVID. COVID normalized the virtual modality for school, for work, for all kinds of things. 7 or 8 years ago, if I had asked somebody, hey, would you mind jumping on a Zoom call with me so we could talk about it? They'd be like, it would have met with resistance. No, I don't have it downloaded. I don't really want to be on camera. I don't know how it works. Do I have to pay for it? All of those types of things. There would have been a lot of resistance to it. Now, people of all demographics, age, things like that, you say, hey, would you mind jumping on a Zoom? Overwhelmingly, most people know exactly what you're talking about and are 100% agreement with it. And so, as Brent mentioned, the days of going and having a cup of coffee or the first meeting being at a house, those days, in my opinion, are gone, and they're going to continue to go away, especially with the introduction of needing to get buyer reps signed before you meet with them. And the virtual call is going to address that, and we'll talk about that. But if people have adapted to a way of doing things, we need to leverage that to our advantage. So we're going to focus on that. At the end of the day, there are tried and true methods that are going to work. There's an acronym that I like to use. It's called KISS, K-I-S-S. I couldn't think of a better, second S other than just say, keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Again, I think a lot of people, they have this idea that they're going to have some kind of golden ticket or something that they're going to wave in front of a client or a customer that's going to solve all of their housing issues. But no, at the end of the day, it's about having really good conversations and being helpful and getting them again from point A to point B. And the virtual call allows us to do that in a way that in person or at a house is not going to. We have a lot of experience with lead conversion, working a bunch of different lead sources and things like that, but this translates across all modalities. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, well, your proof of concept, what does that look like? If you look at over the last 3 years, when I've been scheduling appointments part-time, I've been averaging about 7 new lead appointments a week for the 3 years consistently. We have agents that we meet that struggle to get 1 or 2. And again, it's like they're overthinking the process. It's really just, hey, let me get on the phone with you. Let me chat with you. Let me find out what it is that you're looking at doing and what I can do to help you out. And then let's talk about next steps. And it's just as simple as that. But out of those 7 every single week, whether they're buyer or seller, at least 5 of them are virtual. And you start working the numbers back and looking at it, if you take an hour to drive somewhere, spend an hour with somebody, an hour driving back, that's 3 hours of your time. You could have knocked out 4 virtual consultations in that amount of time. So the data is there to say that this does work. And again, next week, we're going to talk a little bit about leveraging showing services like Showami and really leveraging your time. As Brent mentioned, everybody has their own why. My why is to transact more and more and more. With this model, I want to double production next year. And I absolutely think that we can do it by streamlining this and really getting a good, effective template for what it's going to look like. So let's talk about gaining buy-in. How do we get people on board with the idea of doing a virtual call? Well, first thing is you got to have a good frame to your conversation. A lot of times, and one of the mistakes that I hear a lot, particularly when people call online leads, hey, I saw that you were looking at houses in this market. Are you looking at buying anytime soon? There's a lot going on with new construction, or, oh, the market's doing this. And you've just turned that person away right from the start. The first 5 to 10 seconds of an initial conversation with somebody is going to tell that person whether they're going to want to talk to you or not. So you have to open and frame very effectively where you say, this is my intro, this is my role, this is what I want to accomplish with you. And then temp check them. How does that sound? All right, sounds great. So how those sound whenever I talk to a new lead, whether regardless of lead source, is just outside of Sphere or outside of past clients that already know me. Hey, it's Mike McCullough. I'm with this brokerage or this team. Saw that you were looking for some help with the home buying process. Wanted to touch base and see what I could do to help. And just that, I just want to see what I can do to help is the part that wins, because you're not coming off as salesy. You're endearing yourself to somebody, trying to show that you want to help. What can I do to help? And it's an open-ended question. That's another issue that I think that we struggle with, is not knowing the power of open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. Should avoid asking those questions. Are you looking at buying a house? When do you, are you looking now? Are you looking in this specific area? No, we need to change that to ask the questions that say, tell me about your home search. What is it that you're looking at doing? Who's involved in this process? What steps have you taken? What would this mean to you? How would that make you feel? What are you hoping to accomplish? And probably the most impactful thing that you can say is, tell me more. If you're ever at a point where you're like, I don't know really what to ask them. Well, what did they just say to you? Tell me more about that. What do you do for a living? Oh, I work, I had a virtual consultation this morning before we got on here, as Brent mentioned. What do you guys do for a living? And one of them is a regional director for Whole Foods. And it's like, oh, wow, tell me more about that. What is it that you do on a day-to-day? And it's just as simple as that, just asking those questions. And again, making that an 80-20 type of a thing. But then there's going to be a point, and I think that this is a developed skill, where you're going to know how to, in effect, close the deal, if you will, where it says, look, hey, I appreciate you talking to me. I know you probably weren't expecting a call right now, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. You've told me these things. You repeat their words back to them. It shows that you're actively listening. It's very critical. You told me these things. Has anybody ever walked you through these things before and got you really prepared? No. I mean, the data suggests nationally like 47% of people buying houses are first-time home buyers. So you got a 50-50 likelihood that this is somebody that's never bought a house before, and probably a far greater likelihood that nobody's ever actually offered to sit in just in a non-threatening environment, talk to them about what these decisions are going to look like. And that's where we differentiate ourselves from everybody else. Real estate agents the world over can call and say, cool, you're looking in this area. What kind of square footage are you looking for? How many bedrooms do you need? What kind of style do you like? What does your budget look like? Have you gotten pre-approved? There is a time and a place for all that stuff. It's not the time and the place to do it when you're first trying to build a relationship. But look, you obviously have some level of intent. You're wanting to do this. You said nobody's ever helped you with this before. And the book that I mentioned, Never Split the Difference, the one compelling statement that he has in that book that I've started to use to great effect is learning how to ask questions in a way that allows them to say no in a positive manner. And how you do that is you say, would you be opposed to doing something? So instead of saying, well, I think a good next step is for us to jump on a virtual call so I can talk to you about all these cool and wonderful things. No, it's off-putting. Hey, I think your next step is for us to go out to a house. There's a house out in this market that I just saw a price reduction on. We should go and look at it. No, that's the wrong way to do it. It needs to be, would you be opposed to just a little bit of your time, 20 to 30 minutes, jump on a virtual call with me so we can chat a little bit about your goals, make sure that we're on the same page, and talk a little bit about what this decision would look like for you. Keeping it intentionally vague, but also dangling something in front of them. And it's not misleading, but dangling something in front of them that says there is a reason why you want to jump on a call with me. And that's how you get the buy-in.
How do you,
Again,
Michael, how do you frame that differently? Because what you just said is, hey, has anyone helped you with this process before? Well, let's say they've done this process before and they don't need that help. So how does that change what you're saying?
so I would ask them the question, you're obviously looking for a reason. We're talking for a reason. You have experience with this before. Tell me, how was that experience? If you're talking to me, it's not saying it outright because I don't want to be combative or I don't want to risk like creating a weird situation. But if you've worked with a real estate agent before in this market and you're talking to me as opposed to the person that you talked to, I'd like to understand what happened. What went really well about that interaction? What did you like? What did you not like? What do you expect moving forward? And probably the best question that you can ask there is, what are you looking for in a real estate agent that you choose to partner with moving forward?
Good question.
You're literally getting the answers to the test from them. And, this is where I say, I think a lot of people, their interpretation of what it means to be a good sales person is that they just assume what they do is going to fit for everybody. The way I operate is going to be the best way for everybody. No, what's important to one person is not important to the next person. And if you can find out what's important to them, you can cater your whole response based on what feedback they gave you. Hey, what's important to you and the real estate agent you choose to work with? The people this morning said, we're looking for somebody with knowledge. Great. I can queue up all the data and stats and give you all the examples in the world of all the knowledge that I have, if that's what's important to you. If you tell me what's important is somebody that communicates very well, then I can ask you some more questions to say, what's your preferred way of communicating? How often do you want me to communicate with you? Do you prefer text, email? What else? And so you can cater what you're doing based on the feedback, but you're never going to get there if you don't ask questions. But it should
Michael,
be yeah, go ahead.
can I push back? And I'm not really pushing back, but I feel like I don't know for me if I got the answer to the question that I asked though, which is when someone, because the way you're framing it to get the virtual appointment is for someone who doesn't have experience. So it's a new home buyer. How do you get the appointment when it's not a new home buyer? The virtual appointment
So what's your goal?
to buy a house.
So you've bought a house before. Are you currently in that home?
Yes.
Can I ask why you might be looking at making a move?
Just want to get into a different school district.
Okay. So you see where I'm going with that, where I start to ask a little bit more clarifying. I'm trying to understand why you're wanting to move one direction to the next. Well, look, hey, I appreciate all that. Would you be opposed to jumping on a virtual call? Because there's clearly a lot of moving parts, and I don't know if you have any experience with selling a house, but it would give me an opportunity to show you what we're doing to get the sellers the most amount of money in getting their houses sold and also getting into a new house. And we can talk about a few different ways to go about that. Would that work for you?
Got it. That's great.
So yes, sorry that I didn't answer it initially, but that's
It's
what
okay.
you can do. So So I want to pause there for just a second. So that's again gaining buy-in to the actual appointment itself. You know, whether, I mean, a past client, I know we talked a little bit earlier. It's like, you know, even if somebody's bought multiple different houses with you, man, have you been paying attention to the market? It is crazy. Interest rates are high. Houses are sitting on the market. I got this data this morning from a title company that shows that in this market, people are getting on average 94% of list price right now. Like, why don't we jump on a call and look at this actual data and see how you'd like to approach this situation? You know, and I mean, it's a lot easier. Like, hey, I'd like to come by your house, but oh, the kids have baseball or this or that. No, what are you doing on your lunch break today? Let's just jump on a virtual call during your lunch break and talk about it then. How's that sound? Cool. Awesome.
It is
So I want to
easier.
pause. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to pause there again for just a second, seeing if we have any questions as of right now before we move on to the next part.
Michael, you said you're setting on average 7 new appointments a week. How many of those new appointments are virtual?
At least five, and out of those five with virtual, I'm having at least an 80% show rate.
So an 80% show rate. So 4 appointments a week are showing up. From those four, how many, and let's say they're all buyers. How many buyers reps are you getting signed?
Out of those, at least two or three.
Okay. So 2 or 3 a week of buyer reps. And are you getting them signed before anyone meets, before you ever meet them, if you ever do?
Yes. Now there's a caveat to that. I don't have to have a buyer's rep if I'm going out and getting virtual content. I don't have to have a buyer's rep if I'm meeting and having coffee with you. I don't have to have a buyer's rep if I'm doing a virtual call. States you only need to have one if you're going into a house. So I set the expectation with them on that call, which I'll get into here in just a second. Hey, I just want to make you aware of how this whole process is working. Let me address this with you. And I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but this is one of those value added bonuses of these calls is that if I get to spend 30 minutes with you on a virtual call and chat with you and build this relationship and really strengthen my likelihood that I'm going to be your real estate agent, then what we're going to do is I want to get ahead of this because what I'm seeing when I talk to a lot of people and I start asking them their experience with these situations, a lot of people are telling me that right off of the bat, they're getting buyer reps stuck in their face. Hey, I need a buyer rep from you. I need a buyer rep from you. I need a buyer rep from you. And if you don't have a pre-existing relationship with somebody and they start shoving stuff in your face to sign, do you really feel like you're going to have a high likelihood of success with that? No, I want to build a relationship with you. I want to talk to you. I want to get to know you. I want to game plan what we're going to do. While I have you on the call, I want to address this one thing with you and talk it up in a really positive light. You know, I think a lot of people lack confidence talking about it because they're like, "Oh, I got to get you to sign this thing," and it's really not comfortable. No, you should be positive about it because what this document means is that you are protected as a buyer. You should want to see these kinds of things. And oh, by the way, if you're ever not happy with what I'm doing, if you don't feel like I'm doing my job for you, I will tear this thing up right in front of you. It breaks barriers down. It peels the layers of that onion back, whatever you want to call it, to say, okay. And I'll say, look, today's Thursday. I'd really like for us to be able to get out and take a look at some houses this weekend. If we're going to get out and go and see on Saturday, I need this to be signed by the end of the day tomorrow. Is that fair? Okay. And we charge transaction fees. That's one of the things that people have had a really tough time with getting over is, oh my gosh, I don't know how I feel about telling them. Man, if you've ever seen a closing disclosure and you see all the fees that are on one of those things, I mean, when you have to pay a title policy plus a lender's title policy and deed recording fees and all of these things, what's another few $100 going to take? But I also make sure that you understand that on the back end, it's going to make sure that we have a really smooth transaction. But do you have any concerns about this representation agreement? No, awesome. I'm going to send it to you. I expect you to sign it. I've gotten 3 buyers reps signed already, and it's Thursday morning. So
It's that
so
little
that's
nuance. It's those little nuances in how you're saying things that I think do, like you said, break those barriers down.
Mhm. So the virtual appointment. So let's talk about that. Now, here's where I'm going to jump ahead to the do's and the don't do's. The don'ts. We have a buyer's guide, we have a seller's guide. I've known people that will get on a virtual call and just read through all 20 or 30 pages of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is boring. Who wants to do that? Why wouldn't you have just sent it to me and let me read through it on my own? What's the purpose of us being on a call if all you're going to do is read this thing? No, I'm done. So using anecdotal evidence is going to be the key, and use personal experience. I had one of our agents who's been in this game for a really long time. He's a top producer. He got on and shadowed the virtual appointment I had this morning. He's like, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. He goes, the amount of anecdotal personal experience that you share, I think got their buy-in. These people have bought and sold houses before. They know the deal. What was most important to them is having somebody who's knowledgeable about the market. And so how I break it up is a 10-10-10 rule. These virtual appointments really shouldn't be any longer than 30 minutes. If they do, then you're having a really good conversation. If you're on for longer than 30 minutes, there's a really good dialogue going, unless you're just talking their ears off, which I feel like I'm doing right now. But being flexible with your time. I have two small kids. They go to bed at 7 o'clock. And so I tell people, if we need to do it at night, we need to do it on the weekend. Hey, whatever works best for you is what I want to accommodate. And I think a lot of these people think that we work just normal business hours, like 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. No, I'm available weeknights, weekdays, lunch breaks, whatever. Like, what time works best for you? And when you're in them, the first 10 minutes of it really should be all relationship building. Asking more personal questions. How did you get here? Where have you lived before? What do you guys like doing? I mean, they moved here from Cincinnati, the folks I talked to this morning. So we had part of that discussion where they were Cowboys fans, but like most Cowboys fans, were sick of being Cowboys fans right now. And they lived in Cincinnati for 5 years. So they're Bengals fans. You're not able to get away with that a lot of times on an initial call. There's a time and a place for everything. That first 10 minutes, just get to know them a little bit more. How did we get to talking here? That next 10 minutes is really the meat and potatoes. I call it discovery or understanding, whatever you want to call it. I need to know what it is that you're looking for and what I can do to help you out. Again, point A to point B, keeping it simple. What are you looking for? All right, great. And then that next 10 minutes is all about next steps. Well, hey, look, I really appreciate the opportunity to get on this call with you. I really hope that I get the opportunity to work for you and partner with you. I want to talk a little bit about what I think are good next steps. One, I think you need to go ahead and talk to a lender. I'm going to get you introduced to one here in just a few minutes. I brought a lender onto that call with us so they could get a face to a name and let them chat for just a second. So making the handoff as hot as possible. And the other thing is I'm going to send you a list of houses. I'm going to have it narrowed down. I'm not going to send you 300 or 400 houses. I'm trying to get to no more than 50, but I want you to look at them and I want you to tell me what you do and what you don't like. And going back to the whole thing about showing value, doing what they want you to do. They said, we need an expert that's knowledgeable in this field. I'm going to show anecdotal evidence. So what did I do? I pulled up MLS and I showed them houses that I'd closed over the last couple of months where I got a lot in concessions and I got them below list price. And how did I do that? I knew the market, knew what was going on, and I knew how to negotiate. And I brought that up to some folks, some agents not too long ago, people that have been doing this for a really long time. And somebody said, what do you mean you show them? It's like, guess what you get to do on a virtual appointment is share your screen. Instead of having a cup of coffee and saying, yeah, I got this house, I helped this person with this or that. You're just saying things. You could be lying through your teeth. Like, you could be fabricating all of this. But if I can actually show you things, I pulled up on my email from the title company that shows what we are seeing as far as sales price to list price, show them MLS, show them the concessions, show them actual like data on what monthly payments look like with a temporary buy down, a mock closing disclosure, all of these things. This is what I can do for you. Now you're actually proving to me what you can do. And at that point, there really is no other reason for them to talk to another agent because I've got them locked in.
Yeah, I love that, Michael, because I love what you said about you're proving to them that you're doing what you say you're doing and you're not just really full of it or blowing smoke, because it makes me think here in Dallas, I could tell you probably 9 out of every 10 realtors, their signature page says, their signature line on their emails always says they're the top 1% real estate agent in town. And I'm like, but are you? Or are you just saying that? And it always cracks me up. So I say David's laughing at that too. And everyone does it. I'm top producing, top 1%. I'm like, but are you? And then you sit there and you go, hey, let me show you MLS and let me show you where I got these sellers credit. Oh, you have a lease that you need to break. It's like, well, let me show you where I got $15,000 for so and so. And you actually have MLS ready for them. It's like, see right there, that seller credit. I mean, that's proof. You're showing them what you're doing. So that I love that. It's awesome.
And I mean, I welcome competition. I really do. Jen, who's on this call, actually listened to me talk to somebody the other day. When I say that these calls should really only last about 30 minutes, that's really about all that you need. I had one 2 weeks ago that lasted for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I promise you, I probably talked all of about 2 minutes of a 75-minute call. And I just shut up and let this person tell me about all of their negative experiences that they have had. They're relocating here from Boston, and they're a high price point lead that anybody would have loved to have had. I mean, we're talking multi-million dollars, and it's not to brag, but I think in that situation, a lot of agents would see that and then eyes get real big and get super excited and, oh, I'm going to talk to you and talk your ears off, and then you lose that person. All that I did was listen to them on that initial call, and all I did was listen to them on that virtual call and said, well, look, here are the things that you're concerned about. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure that it's not an issue moving forward. Won that client doing very little. And Brent said, not doing anything special. It's just being human. But I can't tell you how many times that I hear people say that they're interviewing multiple different agents. If I have the opportunity to show you some things and have a good conversation with you and build a relationship with you and prove to you that I'm the best fit, I'm going to win that 99.9% out of the time. If I lose it, clearly I didn't do something that I should have done. But overwhelmingly, being helpful in this way is what's going to convert people. And I think, especially in the market with the things that we're dealing with, having to try to overcome objections with the interest rates, the markets, the cost of housing, cost of rent, buyer's rep agreements, all of these things. This is a very easy, consolidated way to do it, as opposed to driving an hour to meet with somebody for an hour and then drive back home for an hour. I could have done 4 of these in that amount of time.
And
And
Michael,
so,
on the in the spirit of time, I'm noticing that
yep,
we have about 15 minutes.
yep.
We probably leave a couple minutes for some questions. Um, I don't know where you want to take the next direction, but I wonder if you can bullet point. You've already bullet pointed how you're getting that person into a virtual appointment. How are you taking that from a virtual appointment to a buyer's rep, et cetera? Go for it.
Yeah. So just going through those things, like I said, and just saying, like, here are the next steps. And I think where a lot of people lose clients is that they're not very consistent and direct in what the next steps need to look like. And then what they do is they just start calling and texting and repetitively and basically bothering them to the point where they don't want to move forward. And that happens all the time. So, like with these folks this morning, I said, look, here's what I want to do. I got you introduced to my lender. That's the biggest next step. I want you to go ahead and start working on this today. They're going out of town this weekend. So I said, let's look towards next week. But what I want you to do is, you and your wife, I want you guys to talk, and I want you to let me know by the end of the weekend how you guys are feeling, if you want to move forward with me. And if you do, I'm going to have this buyer rep agreement and IABS form in your inbox. Go ahead and sign that. And if you're not comfortable moving forward with me, you don't have to sign it. Just let me know. But if I don't hear from you by Monday at the same time that we're on this call right now at 8:45 Central, I'm going to follow up with you Monday morning. How does that sound? Sounds great. Perfect. I've given them now homework. And if they don't do it, I know what I'm up against. And if they say, you know what, we're not going to move forward, fine. And if they do want to move forward, then I would fully expect to start looking at some houses in person on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Again, that nuance right there, Michael, is like, hey, what are the next steps? And you talk about the next steps. You're physically saying the word homework, right? Like, hey, I'm going to give you some homework.
Mhm.
Love it.
So, well, looks like we've lost a couple people. It's unfortunate, but everybody's got time. There wasn't really a whole lot other than I was going to go through what are the do's and don'ts, and what to do, what not to do. I think most importantly, the things not to do: not to overtalk, not to think about it, just do it. Don't oversell, don't annoy, don't be late, don't be unprepared, and don't sweat the small stuff. Again, we're not doing anything different. It's just how we're doing it that's going to change. But if there are things that are happening in the market and the way that we're doing business that we can use as a competitive advantage, we need to pivot and do that. And I can, confidently say that I think most real estate agents are not thinking forward and doing these things. And converting a lead may be as simple as just being different, just being the person that breaks up the monotony of the same line of questions over and over and over and over again. So I want to stop there. That's all the content that I had on this. And I know we're down to just David. So David, what's on your mind? Is there anything in particular that you're taking away from this?
Yes, I took some good notes. Let me see. What I really liked was after you introduce yourself, just simply ask, what can I do to help? Leave it at that. Let them kind of flush out any questions that they do have. Another great point was that one right after. Has anyone ever explained the process to you? Because we run into issues where people will buy new construction and then sell, but never buy resale. So it's, what do you mean the house isn't perfect? Well, you're buying a 30-year-old house. What the hell do you expect? Are you leaving your house in perfect condition? So,
and you may have someone who's just moving from state to state and they know how their state operates and not how for Texas operates.
Yeah. I have a guy now, he lives in California. He moved from Nevada to California, and then he's coming to Texas. Hopefully he leaves his politics where they're at. But he keeps reverting. Well, in Nevada and California, it's like, okay, well, it's Texas. Doesn't matter. Right. And he's still stuck on, but we do it this way here. It's like, okay, well, it's not California. So,
and David, I think one of the things that, because you said at the beginning of this that you do a lot of past clients, a lot of sphere of influence, things like that. One of my last deals that I just did, I didn't show her one house. I did not go meet with her. She is my past client. We've done, and her family. I've done deals with her family, and it was. I did leverage a showing partner there using Shawami. I paid $50 and she saw 2 houses. So it cost me $100. And how much? And this was in at least an hour drive for me each way.
Yeah.
And, I'm, as a team leader, I need my time to work on the business and not in the business. So my focus is like, I need to be doing agent attraction and things like that, and recruiting to my team, et cetera. So my time's not best spent doing that. What I used to do is I used to go and say, hey, so-and-so team member, you just want this person? And then we'd have an agent split on it. Now I'm able to do this and be incredibly profitable by doing it this way. So it just goes to show. And so Michael, what he didn't say, and I've heard him because his office is like on the other side of this wall from me, is he'll say, hey, we operate a little bit differently than other agents. Let me explain our process. And that the reason he's saying that is he's setting up, hey, a partner agent is going to be able to do this. Our job is to be your, Michael says, chief strategic officer. He's their CSO. So chief strategist. My job's to negotiate, get you in the house, or not get you in the house, but get you the house and negotiate and get you the best deal possible and what's best for your needs. And so taking that, it's like, but what we do is we leverage partners. And what's going to happen is we're going to someone's going to go open the door. I'm going to follow up with you right afterwards, get your thoughts and feelings on the house. I'm going to follow up with that agent, and we take the next steps if we need to. So again, that's a whole nother conversation, but you see how we've done this, and there's different ways to leverage this partner model. And there's people that have people on salary, that's salary plus a small commission. Have tried the commission base, and we've pivoted to just paying per door, and it's way more profitable. You sell a $500,000 house and you pay someone 20% of that. Well, or you can pay $50. And so that's one of those things where you go, and there's these limiting beliefs that come around every single thing we talked about today. And that's what's so good about this is they're our own limiting beliefs. It's like, well, and then so I had a buddy of mine, past client, I've worked with another one that I've worked with their whole family, and he called me, I think it was last Thursday, and he said, hey, I want to go see this house at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Can you do it? And I was like, well, let me talk to my wife, make sure I've got nothing, et cetera. And, as a matter of fact, I think it was Friday and that was going to be Saturday. And I called him back. I was like, yeah, man, we're going to 10. He goes, no, dude, I've already got it set up. He's like, I'm already getting in the house. And he's like, I don't need you to. He's like, do you want to come with us? I was like, well, that'd be weird. I was like, how are you going to see this house? He's like, I'll just set up a showing on Zillow. And I was like, it's like, okay, I don't love that, but
Yeah.
and he's like, no, it's cool. And I was like, well, it's also under contract, just so you know. And I am the least proponent of wasting another agent's time unnecessarily. And so I did offer to go do it. But again, that just goes to show even your best clients will go online and they will go. And so
Yeah.
again, a whole nother conversation is keeping up with those past clients and how often you and he went to the same college as me. And I went to Ole Miss and we're doing great right now. And we literally talk once a week through text message. And he's going to see Al's. I had no clue they were even looking. No clue, because we just talk about college football. So you just never know. So there's so many, we unpack so many things through this, but it does go to show that you can leverage your time and you can do that through these virtual calls. They work. This isn't conceptual. Michael's setting 7 a week, 5 are virtual, and he's getting 80%, 4 of them showing up to those appointments and getting 2 to 3 buyer reps a week. Do the math. In Texas, that's a ton. In Dallas, our average price point's gone up to about $500,000. That's a whole lot for one person to do. And Michael's still able to have his weekends with his family doing that type of production.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
The one thing I struggle with the showing companies, you never know what you're going to get. You may get that half professional, comes with jeans and a shirt where the buttons are kind of offset, and you just, because Lisa did an appointment with one of them, whatever company it was, and just to test the water as if she was the client. So she went there, saw the house, paid 30, 40 bucks, whatever it was. And that one was okay. But the next one wasn't as different person. So
yeah, Michael can take that one.
So with Shawami specifically, what I've done is, I mean, every week there's probably 2 to 4 people that I'm scheduling out that are using Shawami. And so I'm getting an opportunity to see them. What I've found is a lot of the same ones are accepting the requests. And I'll talk to them a little bit. Like I'll reach out directly and just say, hey, thank you so much for helping out. I appreciate it. Kind of gauge where they live, what areas that they work in. And I'll tell them like, you may see me put in a few more requests, this and that or whatever. And, I just kind of track everything. And then I talk to in my actual like hot sheet, because I've got a CRM that we use. It's really effective, but I have an Excel hot sheet, if you will, that has all these different columns. But I'm actually about to start tracking in there the partner. I was doing it when we had a set of salaried partners before, but I'm going to start doing it with those Shawami agents to see if there's any data that suggests with one versus the other, things seem to go better. But I'm always talking to the clients afterwards. I'm like, how did it go with that person? And, based on the feedback, if it's someone that they say, yeah, they did a really good job, I'm seeing where some of them want to try to inform a little bit more than they probably should. And some of them just aren't, they're just opening up the door. But if you find ones that you like, then there is a way in Shawami that you can request a showing specifically with them.
Oh,
And
okay.
it gives them a 10-minute head start on everybody else within the market to accept it. So I started doing that with this young lady named Karen. She crushed it with these clients. And I asked her, I was like, would you be opposed to me putting you in there? And she's like, no. And so for like 3 weeks in a row, every single person that I had on this whole east side of DFW was this one person over and over and over and over again. And she was appreciative because she's making a ton of money, showing a ton of houses. So there are ways to kind of check it, and you can rate people on it. But so far, I've had far less concerns about the quality of the partners. I think I've only had one that canceled like 30 minutes prior to the showing because they thought the neighborhood was sketchy. And that pissed me off. So I know not ever to work with this person again, but overwhelmingly it's been super positive. So,
And they'll run your open houses for you too, believe it or
Yep.
not. So,
Really?
yep.
Really?
Yep. So it's almost counterintuitive to say, well, I need to pay you $50 to go run my open house when you're going to be getting leads. But that's the way the system works. And I do want to say, because we're kind of out of time, David, I want to give you a moment to ask any other questions, and you know, and also either Lisa can call me anytime she wants. I just want to make sure that if people watch this on YouTube or whatever, that I know I put it in the chat to you directly. I know that at the beginning of this call, I said warp speed, and I know that's Star Trek, and I'm not an idiot. I know it's
when you
light
said
speed.
it, and I'm thinking it's light speed, but I was like,
I know it's light speed, and I'm
Okay.
way more of a Star Wars person. Like Star Trek's okay, but I just want anyone that watches to know that I'm not a moron. Because I've had anyone who watches the beginning, it's like, that guy's an idiot. Okay, I'm not. That's
cool.
so fun.
But no questions. Honestly, some great takeaways from it. I do appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to do the video.
Yeah,
Sharing. I do appreciate that.
absolutely. We'll get this whenever. It probably take us. It may even be Monday before we get around to getting this online and everything. But I know there were a lot of other people that were interested in this, especially with the Dave Ramsey group that that we're all part of. So we'll send it out to everybody. And like I said, Michael's the best at this, and he crushes it. And we're lucky to have him. If we could clone him, you know, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
we'll keep working on that. All right.
Perfect.
Great stuff. Appreciate you joining us, David, and we'll
course.
talk to y'all soon.
Yep. Have a good one. We'll see you.